We'd like to finish off this series with 10 top tips for taking great pictures. Tip number 1, look your subject in the eye. Quite often, you can see if you're an adult taking a picture of a child, you may take it just from your viewpoint, but once again, we've emphasized this before, get down to the person's eye level and you will find the picture will come to life and it'll fill the frame at the same time. So keep this in mind as your tip number 1. Tip number 2, when you're taking a picture of someone, look for something that doesn't have a distracting background. In this case here with the girl and the background, the balloons and the pole on the left-hand side, you can see the pole looks like it's coming out of her head. Rather than on the right-hand side, just moving her over a little bit and having a nice sort of a green background that makes her pop out a little bit better. So look for a background that doesn't distract and take away from your image. Tip number 3, sometimes it's necessary to use a flash outdoors, depending on where the light is coming from. You can see here in this case here, the light was actually behind this gentleman, and because of that, sitting on the dock, we want to get this shot with the water, but in order to lighten up his face, we actually had to force the flash. So this is one of the tips that you can use outdoors, is don't be afraid to use a flash if you need to fill in the subject just to bring him out a little bit more. Tip number 4, move in close. You can see the shot there on the bottom is much better, I think, than the one on the top. And it makes it more interesting, more personal, I think. And so if your subject is small, move in close. Tip number 5, move it away from the middle. Center stage is a great place for a performer to be. However, the middle of your picture is not the best place for your subject. Remember the rule of thirds here. And so you can see the top picture with the tower looks a little boring. The bottom one, much better. You still get the tower, you still get the majesty of that tower, but you can see now the landscape that comes to life and brings the tower to life because what it's looking over. So move it from the middle. Tip number 6, lock the focus. Remember we talked about pressing down halfway, locking that focus, and then taking a shot afterwards. Otherwise you might find that your subject is out of focus and the background is in focus because the focus wasn't properly set to start off with. Tip number 7, know your flash's range. Good example of this is even at concerts. You go to a concert of your child at school, they're on stage, you take your shot with the flash and you wonder why it comes out so dark. Well, unless you've got a proper flash that's quite powerful, you are not going to be able to properly illuminate that subject. Now, cameras are getting a little bit easier in that area because they're much more sensitive to low light situations. Higher ISOs and things of that nature may help as well. But when using a flash, know your flash's range. Tip number 8, watch for the light. You can see here some good examples of playing with light, the light coming in from the side like that. And light is so important, when taking a photograph. It can make and break it. You don't want the front of your subject just filled full of light, like flashing them in the face with a flash with no other lighting going on behind that. So here we can see two beautiful examples of watching the light. Number 9, take some vertical pictures. They don't always have to be horizontal. In this case here, the vertical one actually looks better because it brings in more of the ruggedness of the rocks here. And so try different effects. Sometimes because it's pretty inexpensive to keep shooting, take one vertical, take one horizontal, see what they look like when you get it back, and you'll quite often see that vertical pictures have a nice fit. And tip number 10, learn to be a picture director. Take control of your picture taking and watch your pictures dramatically improve. Here is a group of children standing here. You could say, listen, I want to take your picture, or you could move right in and get them to ham it up. You'd be surprised how kids Love the ham it up. Move them around a little bit. You know, maybe give them some props, but you'll find that if you're the director, your pictures will improve 100%. Now, with all these tips and techniques we've learned, we hope that you have a lot of fun and enjoy your photography. Thanks again for joining us.